Abandonment to Divine Providence. By Father Jean-Pierre de Caussade, S.J. Book 2, On the State of Abandonment. Chapter 4. Concerning the assistance rendered by the fatherly providence of God, to those souls who have abandoned themselves to Him. Section 8, Self-Guidance a Mistake. God imparts to the soul in the state of abandonment, by means which seem more likely to destroy it. There is a time when God would be the life of the soul, and Himself accomplish its perfection in secret and unknown ways. Then all its own ideas, lights, industries, examinations, and reasonings become sources of illusion. After many experiences of the sad consequences of self-guidance, the soul recognizing its uselessness, and finding that God has hidden and confused all the issues, is forced to fly to Him to find life. Then, convinced of its nothingness and of the harmfulness of all that it derives from itself, it abandons itself to God to gain all from Him. It is then that God becomes the source of its life, not by means of ideas, lights, or reflections, for all this is no longer anything to it but a source of illusion. But in reality, and by His grace, which is hidden under the strangest appearances. The divine operation, unknown to the soul, communicates its virtue and substance by many circumstances that the soul believes will be its destruction. There is no cure for this ignorance, it must be allowed its course. God gives Himself therein, and with Himself, He gives all things in the obscurity of faith. The soul is but a blind subject, or, in other words, it is like a sick person who knows nothing of the properties of remedies and tastes only their bitterness. He often imagines that what is given him will be his death. The pain and weakness which result seem to justify his fears. Nevertheless, it is under the semblance of death that his health is restored, and he takes the medicines on the word of the physician. In the same way, the submissive soul is in no way preoccupied about its infirmities, except as regards obvious maladies which by their nature compel it to rest, and to take suitable remedies. The languor and weakness of souls in the state of abandonment are only illusory appearances which they ought to defy with confidence. God sends them, or permits them in order to give opportunities for the exercise of faith and abandonment which are the true remedies. Without paying the least attention to them, these souls should generously pursue their way, following by their actions and sufferings the order of God, making use without hesitation of the body as though it were a horse on hire, which is intended to be driven until it is worn out. This is better than thinking of health so much as to harm the soul. A courageous spirit does much to maintain a feeble body, and 1 year of a life spent in so noble and generous a manner, is of more value than would be a century of caretaking and nervous fears. One ought to be able to show outwardly that one is in a state of grace and goodwill. What is there to be afraid of in fulfilling the divine will? The conduct of one who is upheld and sustained by it, should show nothing exteriorly but what is heroic. The terrifying experiences that have to be encountered are really nothing. They are only sent that life may be adorned with more glorious victories. The divine will involves the soul in troubles of every kind, where human prudence can neither see nor imagine any outlet. It then feels all its weakness, and, finding out its shortcomings, is confounded. The divine will then asserts itself in all its power to those who give themselves to it without reserve. It succors them more marvelously than the writers of fiction, in the fertility of their imagination, unravel the intrigues and perils of their imaginary heroes, and bring them to a happy end. With a much more admirable skill, and much more happily, does the divine will guide the soul through deadly perils and monsters, even through the fires of hell with their demons and sufferings. It raises souls to the heights of heaven, and makes them the subjects of histories both real and mystical, more beautiful, and more extraordinary than any invented by the vain imagination of man. On then, my soul, through perils and monsters, guided and sustained by that mighty invisible hand of divine providence. On, without fear, to the end, in peace and joy, and make all the incidents of life occasions of fresh victories. We march under His standard, to fight and to conquer. Exhibit Vincens ad vincerit, He went forth conquering that He might conquer. Apocalypse 6:2. As many steps as we take under His command will be the triumphs we gain. The Holy Spirit of God writes in an open book this sacred history which is not yet finished, nor will be till the end of the world. This history contains an account of the guidance and designs of God with regard to men. It remains for us to figure in this history, and to continue the thread of it by the union of our actions and sufferings with His will. No. It is not to cause the loss of our souls that we have so much to do, and to suffer, but that we may furnish matter for that holy writing which is added to day by day. Next video, Section 9, Divine Love, the Principle of All Good. Thanks.